Hey guys, good afternoon. It is Tuesday, July 1st, and we have the long-awaited press release from AMC talking about the bondholder lawsuit that I have been telling you guys about for many months that was going to have some pretty serious ramifications to the company and to common equity shareholders. And I have been going through this filing since the wee hours this morning, 5 or 6 hours of reading and taking questions from my Discord to kind of see what is on everybody's mind. So in this video, I want to give you my take on the overview, a non-biased, non-emotional, non-hype take of the good and the bad of this press release, things for you to consider. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm certainly not your financial advisor. You should do your own due diligence and read the 8K and all the attachments to it yourself. And if you don't understand it, seek the advice of a competent professional who you pay to give you financial advice. I'm just a retail trader like you guys, trying to wade my way through this, share my DD with you, and then we can have a conversation. Maybe I got all this correct. I don't know. It's a lot. Maybe, working together, you guys can help spot some things that I missed. And maybe through your questions, we can figure all of this out. So with all of that said, let's get right into today's press release. AMC is down today 9.5% at the time of filming this video, currently trading at $2.80. You guys can see up in the upper left-hand corner of this screen, and some of y'all remember because you've been yelling at me for 7 months, I sold my AMC shares that I had been accumulating for a swing trade, sold those back in early November 2024 because I pulled out my crystal ball and looked ahead at the bondholder lawsuit and the fact that the company was effectively out of shares and knew that a day like today was going to come. And we still have at least 6 more months for the ramifications of today's press release to play out. So let's talk about what happened today and what is coming. I've got some slides that I prepared that I'm going to show you to kind of boil all of this down, because there's a lot of people reading bullet points here and jumping to some wild conclusions, I think, that are likely going to be incorrect. You need to spend the 5, 6, 8 hours reading through the documents and making sure that you understand them, because there are a lot of contingencies in today's press release. But let's just hit these bullet points real quick and see what people might be getting wrong. The first one says new money, approximately $223 million of new money financing. I've already seen people saying, oh, liquidity. Oh, yes, we got $200 million coming in. Liquidity is no concern. What they are failing to read is that the bulk of that new incoming liquidity is going to be used to pay off 2026 debt. So there will only be a portion of that, a smaller portion of it, remaining as new liquidity. The second bullet point is debt reduction. Sounds good, right? But it is an equitization, a debt for equity exchange of $143 million worth of the 2030 convertible notes. You remember those ones that people have been on social media saying 566? Well, today, guess what? These bondholders are getting a conversion price of $1.79. Quite a discount, quite a win for the bondholders, getting a conversion price $1 below today's share price of $2.80. On the bright side, that is $43 million of interest that AMC won't need to pay over the next 5 years. On the downside, it is immediate dilution. Where do those shares come from? Back in July of 2024, AMC set aside a certain amount of its remaining shares to have available for conversion. And the bulk of those shares are getting burned today to take care of this $143 million. Why do I say the bulk of them? Because the conversion price is $1.79, not $5.66, which burns almost every share that they had left sitting aside for the convertible notes, which leads into the fact that they're going to need to ask us for more shares. And we'll get into that in just a second. The third bullet point here is that there is litigation resolution. And if we read into the press release, it appears that it is full resolution. However, I think it is more appropriate to say it is full resolution with certain holders of AMC's 7.5% debt holders. So we'll get into some finer points of that moving on to the next part of this video. Before we move on to my executive summary for you guys, I just also want to throw up Adam Aron's tweet to compare it to the press release, because I think he got some of the more salient points more accurately communicated in his tweet than in that press release. He talks about the $220 million coming in, but he does say that it is going to be used to refinance 2026 debt. He talks about the conversion of debt into equity, $143 million. And he mentions there is potential future additional conversion up to a grand total of $337 million. What he left out is he's going to need your vote in December to make that potential future dilution happen, that future potential debt to equity conversion happen. He's going to need your vote. Like he told you a quarter or two ago, no dilution this year without your approval. And he's going to be asking for your approval now, my friends, in December of 2025. The number 3 point, he says that this deal will fully resolve the litigation from, as I just said, some of the holders of the 7.5% secured notes. Not all of them are on board with this new deal still yet, but I think that the company's hope is if they can get the bulk of lien holders, the bulk of the bondholders to agree to this and drop out of the lawsuit, that the remaining folks will just say, all right, we'll sign up for it, whatever. Lawsuit is not worth us going by our lonesome to try and get this fully resolved to our satisfaction. So we'll take the deal, Adam. And I don't know if we'll get into all of it, but there are some pretty good sweeteners or incentives in the totality of today's filings to encourage these bondholders that are trying to sue AMC over last year's debt refinancing. There are some major incentives in today's deal to get them all on board with the new program today. Let's get into the high-level summary now, and I am trying to make this as unbiased as I can because I know there's going to be a lot of people trying to give you their hot take, and they will only focus on the positive stuff. And, you know, I want you to make good decisions. Therefore, we need to talk about all of these stuff, including the uncomfortable parts. The positives of today's deal is it reduces the bankruptcy risk by reducing debt, extending the debt maturities, and adding a little bit of liquidity. It basically improves the balance sheet, and it resolves some of the legal risk related to that bondholder lawsuit. The negatives, though, is I would say, although bankruptcy risk is diminished, it's not eliminated yet. It's not eliminated until box office is robust enough that AMC is booking positive cash flow and positive net income every single quarter. So we still got a little bit of road ahead to us. I'm not waving the all clear flag just yet. Second negative, not all the lien holders are on board with this program yet. There is an effective termination date of today's deal of August 29th, where AMC hopes to have everybody on board. And they do have the ability to extend the deal by 30 days, maybe multiple periods of 30 days to try and get everybody on board. And if you're wondering why is the annual shareholder meeting not until December 10th, maybe they think they might need that extra time to get everybody on board. We will see, but August 29th is a date to keep in mind. The debt restructuring comes at a cost of immediate dilution today, almost 80 million shares to wipe out $143 million of convertible debt that was due in 2030. The debt restructuring for some of the other debt, and we'll get into that in just a second, is going to come at the cost of a much higher interest rate, considerably higher. And, you know, there's going to be people who miss talking about the considerably higher interest rates that AMC is going to have to pay on the debt that it is keeping and restructuring. It's just fact of the situation. To get these debt holders on board, here you go. Here's more interest. Do you feel happy now, Mr. Bondholder? Will you sign on the dotted line? Can we get this settlement done and out of the way? But guys, it's going to cost the company more money. And the final bullet point on the negative side that I want to make sure everybody's clear on, the annual shareholder meeting scheduled now for December 10th will have some form of the company asking shareholders to approve increasing the share count. What form of vote will that be? I don't know. Just straight asking for 300 million more shares, or asking for a reverse split? I don't know. We will find out when the proxy statement gets released. At the very end of this video, in just a couple minutes, we'll talk about why this vote is going to be critical for you to understand all of the pieces of the puzzle, all of the if, thens, then that. If not that, then this is going to happen. We're going to wrap up this video in just a second talking about the December 10th vote. So stay with me a couple more minutes. Thinking about that 223 million of cash that is coming in, the company talks about it in the 8K here in this bullet point where they talk about new financing, total of 825 million in new financing, 590 million of which is going to be used to pay off existing 7.5% notes, and 223 million of incremental new money. And part of that new money is going to be used to pay off 2026 notes. I tried to put together a little visual here. Maybe you pause right here and read through it. I'm not going to read through everything on here, but tried to put all the important notes on here. We have the before situation of all of the debt maturities. And then we have the new situation as best as I could figure it out, reading today's documents very carefully. It's going to be a total reduction in the debt of $40 million. My assumptions to come to that are based on this 2029 number in the middle. You can see it says 3.194 billion, and underneath it, you can see I have 825 million of new financing minus 590 million of existing 7.5% notes that are due 2029 that are going away. And then you'll also see at the top the before and after of the 2026 debt that is going to be paid off, except for, I'm assuming, the unsecured debt, which is $41 million. I haven't seen any verbiage that tells me they're going to pay that off, just the secured term loan portion. So those are the assumptions I'm running with. The final piece of what is changing here is down on the 2030 line. Before, you can see $427 million. That is the 2030 convertible notes that were due. And with 143 million of that being converted to shares today in a debt for equity exchange, that will leave 284 million balance remaining. Total after today, 4.045 billion, or by my best estimate, a $40 million reduction on AMC's balance sheet debt. Because some of that 223 million is not being used to pay off all the debt, we said there would be a little bit of liquidity coming in. You can see down underneath the table in bullet number 2, I'm estimating about $92 million of extra liquidity coming in, which, you know, AMC needs. It's always good to have cash on the balance sheet. The biggest win for AMC out of this lawsuit debt restructuring deal is that the debt that is coming due the soonest now, the $173 million, which they likely were not going to have, has been substantially reduced to only $41 million, which I think is a very easy hurdle for them to pay off if they choose to wait until 2026 to pay off those bondholders. The biggest ouchie here, and from my perspective anyways, is the very last bullet point I have listed underneath this table. You know, that $825 million of new 2029 debt that they're using to pay off the 2026 debt and refinance some of the 7.5% 2029 debt, that $825 million comes with a new higher interest rate, as we mentioned a couple minutes ago, that is going to vary depending on AMC's leverage ratio between 11.5% to 15%. And if I look at AMC's leverage ratio right now, it is my belief that AMC is going to come in closer to the 15% level of interest rate. So we have a doubling of interest that AMC is going to have to pay on this new 2029 debt. And there's no two ways to dance around it. This is a negative from the company's perspective and from shareholders' perspective. You're going to have a higher interest rate on 2029 debt. Those of us that believe the box office is going to get better and AMC's cash flow is going to get better and that its net income are going to get better, also believe that if all three of those things happen, that over time AMC's credit rating will improve and they can go in and do another restructuring and redo all of this debt at a lower interest rate. But that is just speculation on our part, speculation from those of us that are positive about the future. And I don't have any guarantee for you right now that that is going to happen, but that would be the hope, for myself. And obviously I think the company as well. They would like to, at some point in the future, when things get better, wipe all this debt off, restructure it at a lower interest rate. But box office needs to grow and the company's credit rating needs to improve. Before we wrap this up, let's talk about why this deal is not done yet. Some of the if this, then that type stuff. It does say buried in the 8K, it talks about the two parts of this deal. One part is the equitization. That's going to happen no matter what. The 79 million shares for worth $143 million. That's going to happen today, but there is the remaining part of the deal, the $825 million, that is not signed off on yet by everybody. They say that the term loan lenders representing at least 50% of the company's term loans must consent to today's deal in order for that $825 million of new financing to come through. And right now they only have 14% of the term loan holders on board. So they have a bit of convincing to do to get some more of these term loan lenders on board with this new program. And just so we're clear, again, the equitization portion of the deal is done. That is converting 143 million of 2030 debt into 79.8 million shares. That is happening. But if we go on to the rest of the deal, as I mentioned, you need 50.1% of the term loan holders' approval. And that is to get the 825 million refinancing. We will have to stay tuned then over the next coming months and wait for word from the company if they got everybody on board with this deal or not. And if they did not, if they failed to get everybody on board, at least 50.1% of them, if they don't get them on board, then this deal and the resolution of the lawsuit could still be up in the air. As I mentioned, AMC has some pretty nice concessions in this deal to try and get all of these bondholders on board with the new program, the ones who haven't agreed to it yet. There are some extra fees that the company is willing to pay as a bonus. It's called a consent fee. Tens of millions of dollars of extra money available to these lien holders if they get on board in the form of cash or shares. So I want to be clear, despite this not being clearly laid out in a press release or a CEO tweet, there is potentially even more of a payout that the company is going to be responsible for to make this lawsuit go away in the form of bonus consent fees to get everybody in agreement for the settlement. The last bit of today's 8K notified shareholders that there is going to be a December 10th annual meeting. And I don't think that they clearly stated in there that you're going to be given the opportunity to vote on authorizing more shares for the company. And why do they need to do that? Because with the lower conversion price, $1.79, that is being given to the bondholders today to wipe 143 million of convertible debt off of the balance sheet today, that lower conversion price burns almost all of the shares that the company had previously reserved for 2030 debt. And if we go back and look at that debt table in the middle there, 2030, still got $284 million left, and now you're out of shares. How are you going to pay off the rest of those convertible notes? Well, you can't unless you have a shareholder vote authorizing more shares. And so I think, it's almost 100% guaranteed from my perspective. In fact, it's written in the documents that there will be a vote on December 10th asking you for more shares. What is that vote going to look like? I don't know. It doesn't say in the documents, but the two most likely ways to ask shareholders to vote would be increase the authorized shares from 550 million to some greater number, let's say 800 million, or they could ask for a reverse split, which would keep the authorized shares at 550 million, but collapse the current capital structure so that the issued shares is a much lower number, and then they get that overhead between whatever they collapse the shares to and 550 million. I don't know what it's going to be, but one of these two options I think is guaranteed to be on the ballot for December 10th. What happens if shareholders don't approve this? Then all of the new debt that the company is taking on is going to get a penalty of extra points of interest as a concession to the lenders. The lenders want some more debt off the balance sheet. If they don't get it because shareholders don't approve more share issuance, then that puts the lenders at a greater risk because the company has no ability to pay off the debt or raise capital if they need it. And as a penalty, the bondholders are saying, we'll do that if you don't get more shares approved, but you're going to pay us a couple more points of interest on top of the already higher interest that we're agreeing to restructure this deal at. Remember, up to 15%. Now, can you imagine it being up to 17%? I don't know. I mean, these are just things for you to think about. As always, I'm not going to tell you any sort of way to think about how to vote when that time comes. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of other people to tell you what to do, but it won't be me. If you pay really close attention to detail, you might have already noticed the second to last bullet point I had on this slide that we talked about a few minutes ago. And I have done a little bit of work to calculate how many shares the company might need to finish everything that is in this deal, including the consent fees, some room for a make whole clause, and the potential conversion of some more of that 2030 debt. Remember, the company said that they would like to convert another 194 million. I am estimating that it's going to take, depending on the conversion price that the rest of the 2030 notes get converted at, is going to require somewhere between 90 and 166 million shares. So that's a lot, right? That is 90 to 170 million shares just to finish taking care of what is in today's deal. Doesn't even contemplate giving the company any extra overhead to just have cushion to raise capital in an emergency if it is needed. So I can't say for sure what the amount of shares that they need are, but it's, in my view, going to be probably somewhere, at a minimum 90 to 170 million, and likely they will ask for more than that. That is all I got for you on this video. Feel free to drop your questions or comments down below. I know this was a long video, but there is a lot to unpack in today's 8K. And again, I encourage you guys to do your own due diligence. And that does not mean get a couple bullet points off of Reddit or a press release, but to go read the document yourself, see what questions you have. Let's talk about it. If I didn't cover something, or I missed something, or I got it incorrect, feel free to question me, let me know, and let's have a conversation. At the end of the day, I want everybody to have all of the information to make your own very best decision if you are speculating in this stock. I am Tony Denaro. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.